Now this, it should alarm you. Hi, and welcome to Faith in Front. I just want to jump right into the topic today. I was somewhat hesitant about doing it because it's a shame that we're in a culture where you have to be so worried about things being volatile and everything is so emotion driven. And sometimes we can shy away from just speaking truth. And yes, I believe you should speak the truth in love, because that's how you show love, is by telling the truth, not lying to someone just to appease them or not hurt feelings. Showing love is showing truth, because Jesus, he is truth, but Jesus is also love. So we can't be out of balance on either one. Sometimes we can be so worried about showing people love that we won't tell the truth. And then sometimes we can be so bent on telling the truth, we don't show love. So we have to have this balance between both. Matt Walsh actually did a documentary recently called What is a Woman? And you should definitely check it out, because it really exposes just the incoherency and just really where we are as a culture and just how far we have come. So check out this first clip.
Now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow. And the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
Did you catch that? You have children that are now purring in class because they want to be cats. How do we get to where a teacher couldn't say, hey, you're not a cat? How do we get here? When you ignore the truth of God, it just goes in a downward spiral.
So you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat. Mm-hmm. And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes. So it's
the
not
schools
just
are
the
like
young ones.
literal zoos now, basically.
They are.
Okay. So that was kind of funny. It's like, so schools are like just, they could be a zoo, which that's crazy, right? I mean, that's just, I mean, you can laugh at it, but you almost have to laugh to keep from crying, because people are really serious about this. So, but you see, this is just to show where we are. Now let's check out this next guy.
I am a 27-year-old transgender woman. I am a wolf-therian and a member of the furry fandom.
When and how did you discover this inner wolfness?
Probably around age 10 or 11. I was watching an anime about wolves and see the wolf running across the screen, and I'm somehow just intrinsically like, oh, that's me.
Have you spent any time around biological wolves?
Yes.
That sounds dangerous also. What context are you?
So I was a volunteer with a preserve, and I've also visited many wolf preserves.
Are you able to communicate with the wolves?
Am I going to have a conversation with a wolf in the way that I'm communicating you and I? Obviously not. Am I going to read their body language, respond appropriately to their behaviors and their nonverbal cues? Yes.
Would you be able to give us an example of this wolf communication?
No.
I wonder why. Okay, so we have a young man who has not only decided that he wants to be a female, but he also wants to be a wolf too. You see how it just goes down, down. Now, what I find humorous is that now he wants to identify as a wolf. Now, if you threw this guy out there with a pack of wolves, I don't think they would see him as a wolf. What you think they would see him as? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Dinner. But this is where we are, right? This is where we are. Let's take a look at another one.
Why, hello. Welcome to Stephanie's Playtime.
In my mind, I'm a girl. I was never allowed to be a little girl. So I'm filling that tank of little girl experiences.
Restaurants, I just need to use the bathroom. You've probably noticed there's a lot of people worried about their safety because I identify as a 6-year-old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, people should be worried about their safety. Okay? You are a look like 57-year-old guy. Okay, now this is kind of an old clip, so he's probably older than this now. Okay? But you not only want to identify as a woman, but you want to identify as a 6-year-old girl. And we're living in a culture that says, now don't you say he shouldn't be able to do that, because that's a phobia. You see how common sense is now becoming the enemy? It has become the enemy. It's the strangest thing. Now, what's going to happen if he does want to go into the bathroom? If he if he wants to go and go to grade school? Can you imagine that guy sitting in there with your kids, like looking like Elf or something? I mean, that's just unbelievable. But this is where we are. Let's take a look at this next clip.
At what age can a child first begin to transition into another gender or identify themselves as a gender different from how they were born?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's research and data that show that babies and infants understand differences in gender. Some children figure out their gender really early, and the reason why we say, oh, it's interesting or important is because they're figuring out their gender identity is not necessarily congruent with their sex assigned at birth.
That's interesting. Children are figuring it out really early. Now, the interesting thing about it is that this woman is, she's got a lot of letters behind her name. PhD, all of it. All of that. But did you catch what she said? Oh, they can figure it out, because this particular woman, yes, she will do a surgery. She will give them puberty blockers. She'll do all of that because they know at a really early age.
When the doctor sees the penis and says, this is a male, has the sex of male, that's an arbitrary distinction?
Telling that family, based on that little penis, that your child is absolutely 100% male identified, no matter what else occurs in their life, that's not correct.
What? Yeah, just because, that little penis there, nope, that's not a boy. Nope. Just comes down to that. Even though we know that we are male and female by our chromosomes, it's in our DNA, okay? And we just have to remember that God made us that way. But she's saying, no, you can't. And what you got to realize is that even later on in the interview, he asks her about, well, children, they believe in Santa Claus too, right? And this lady would not say if Santa Claus was fake. She wouldn't say it, just to hold on to her argument. She's like, well, it's real. It's real to that child. She would not agree with him that, well, Santa Claus is a fictitious character. She wouldn't agree with it because she knew where he was going. Let's check out this last person and I'll wrap it up.
8 years ago, Ted started transforming his house into a bird cage where he and dozens of birds live together. He even eats the same food as his feathered flatmates.
Here, Lemon. Is you grooming, Dad?
Those babies are more like children to him.
You want to come and see me? Come on then.
Now, lots of people are devoted to their pets.
Say hello. Say it.
So, we got Parrot Guy here. But this is where it goes, right? Listen at what it says in Romans 1. It says in verse 25, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. And then when you jump down to verse 28, it says, furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind, so that they do what ought not to be done. That's it. When you exchange the truth of God, anything goes. A lot of people think the worst thing that can happen is that God can put his hands on you, but really the worst thing that can happen is when God takes his hands off of you and says, okay, go ahead, do you. And this is what we get. We got all kinds of just a plethora of things. And there's other people out there that want to be different species and things like that. But see, that's what happens when you start changing definitions. That's what happens when you start to change definitions. First, it went from you can change the definition of what a man is, a woman is. Now we've moved out of that to where now we've seen a guy who wants to be a wolf. We've seen a guy who wants to be a 6-year-old girl. We've just looked at this parrot guy. How do we get here? How did we get here? Well, I want to show you this book here. It's Letters to the American Church from Eric Metaxas. Great resource to read, because it really is a wake-up call for the church. It is a wake-up call for the church. And I was even hesitant about doing this particular video because things can get crazy. But I read something in this. I read a scripture, and it was Proverbs 29:25. And it says, the fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is saved. So that's why I decided to go on and do this video anyway, because I was concerned. Oh, will the powers that be not even let it be seen, and all this kind of stuff? You know, fear of people. You know, I'm still new at this YouTube game. It's like, oh well, you know, but no. We have, as a church, we have to speak the truth. We have to speak the truth. And Jesus didn't only teach the gospel, but he spoke truth to authority. Now, it also says in Matthew 19, when you just deal with this gender stuff and all that, Jesus was asked about divorce, and he went back to Genesis. And he says, have you not read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be united unto his wife. And some translations say, and cleave unto his wife, and the two should become one flesh, so that they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. So as you can see in that passage right there, Jesus addresses gender, he addresses marriage, he addresses it all. But see, man wants to exchange the truth of God for a lie. And this is what we get. So church, stop being silent, because that's one of the reasons why we are where we are right now. The church has been silent. We just been going around saying, oh, just give them the gospel, or oh, it's just such a shame, oh, and just shaking our heads. Or the other one, well, you know, it's just proof that the Lord is coming back soon. Yes, the Lord is coming back soon. And yes, we are these things that are happening, yes, we do see them as signs that the Lord's return is near. But he also says in Jude 3 to be contenders of the faith. Okay, so we have to be balanced. We can't just use it just shows that the Lord is coming back. We can't just use that as a reason to just roll over and not stand up and say, no, that's not what God says. So yes, as I stated before, we have to pray that righteousness be exalted. But the practical thing you can do is it's easy. Just stop voting for politicians that push everything you just saw. Period.